Yoon Dong-ju is one of Korea's most beloved poets. He was a young man who sang of beauty in the darkest of times. We met with people commemorating Yoon Dong-ju in various ways to mark 2017, the 100th anniversary of his birth. A special exhibition is being held to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the poet Yoon Dong-ju's birth. Calligraphy artists capture in their text the impressions they received from Yoon's posthumous collection, Sky, Wind, Star, and Poem.
The word hope comes to mind first. The fierce world in which Yoon Dongju lived is different from the fierce world young people live in now. However, I believe Yoon Dongju wanted to convey a message of hope.
While studying in Japan, he was accused of being active in anti-Japan activities and was imprisoned in a cell in Fukuoka. In February of 1945, he died of unknown causes. He was just 28 years old. Yoon, having lived a short life of just 28 years under Japanese rule, would become known as a poet who dealt with shame. In his major works Forward, Easily Written Poem, and Star Counting Night, Yoon lamented the loss of his country and of the era and honestly expressed the shame he felt.
그분의 아픈 그런 시대적인 그런 느낌을 우리도 같이 공감할 수 있다는 거에 대해서 되게 참 좋았고.
How did people react to encountering Yoon Dong-ju in this new way?
I only knew the famous works, so it's great to see more new and admirable poetry here. I'd like to tell other people to come and visit here.
Another way to remember the poet Yoon Dong-ju is to walk along the path he often strolled. The road the poet enjoyed walking along as he wrote has changed over the years, but it's being rediscovered through civic groups who still cherish his works. Members walk along the very streets where Yoon Dong-ju passed while thinking of his poetry. They read his biography and his poems as they remember his era and life and reflect on their meaning.
The 100th or the 101st anniversary of Yoon Dong-ju's birth doesn't change anything. I'd like to keep walking this trail with many people, spreading Yoon Dong-ju's spirit and thoughts.
A walk along the Yoon Dong-ju Trail leads to the Yoon Dong-ju Literature Center. It is a place where people visit throughout the year in search of traces of the poet. It is a special venue in which visitors can witness the works and life of Yoon at once.
I was able to more vividly think about how Yoon Dongju lived.
Coming here and seeing the poet Yoon Dong-ju's handwriting gave me goosebumps. It was very moving.
The final spot from which Yoon Dong-ju is remembered is the school he attended, Yonsei University. The buildings where he attended lectures and the dorm he lived in since entering the school in 1938 still remain.
Yoon Dongju wanted to publish a poetry collection before graduation, so he selected 19 works. Most of them were written between his entry in 1938 and his graduation in 1941. Therefore, it can be presumed that the 19 poems Yoon Dongju selected were written on the grounds of Yonsei University and in the dormitories.
In 1941, at the height of Japan's oppression, when the use of the Korean language was banned outright, efforts were made to collect and publish his poems in Korean, but the result was failure. The title of the collection was Sky, Wind, Star, and Poem, and it's one of the most beloved poetry collections in Korea.
Yoon Dongju is probably the first person who comes to mind when Korean people are asked which poets they like. He is a poet who broadened horizons of thought for readers and raised the Korean language to a level capable of such beautiful poetry.
Through the efforts of countless people who strive to read, remember, and encounter the works of Yoon Dong-ju, the young poet remains by our side even to this day.